Hello, everybody, and welcome to this brand new astrology video all about the September 2025 eclipses. We will have an eclipse that is a full moon lunar eclipse on September 7th, and then we will have a new moon solar eclipse on September 21st. So between those dates, we are entering a powerful portal of time when there will be a lot of transformation and a lot of new high frequency energy coming into our planet. So I want to tell you all about that today. The astrological alignments for this month of September, particularly around these eclipses, is just incredible. You won't believe it. So I'm going to share all about that with you today. And to begin here, I will share my screen so we can get started. And I want to just invite you all, whether you have already been a part of the Sacred Planet community for a long time, or whether you are new to Sacred Planet, to come and check out my website. It is at wearesacredplanet.com. I have lots of wonderful free gifts here, and you can check out all my latest exciting announcements, upcoming tours to Egypt, other exciting things. And I want to just introduce myself and say, hi, I am Jocelyn Starfeather, and my mission is to guide visionary seekers all around the world in breaking free from everything that has held you back in the past so that you can bring your brightest light and your greatest gifts into the world. And we have so much fun here in the Sacred Planet community, and I am just so delighted to have you here with me today in this video. I do want to let everybody know that registration is officially open for the Mysteries of the Great Goddess 2 pilgrimage. This is the second time that we are running this pilgrimage. The first time that we did was in April 2025, and it was an absolutely magnificent journey with my co-facilitators, Vox Lumina and Cynthia Honores. We went to the most incredible and beautiful sites. We sought out the great goddesses in their temples. Dendera, the temple of Hathor, Philae, the temple of Isis, and many, many more. And we also found the beautiful sacred masculine all throughout Egypt in the most magical ways. So this is a really beautiful journey. It's happening from February 7th to the 21st, 2026. And it is very much aligned with this really important transit that's coming up that will be exact on February 20th, which is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And when we were in Egypt and when we were actually in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid in April 2025, I received very specific instructions about when I needed to bring people back to connect with the Great Goddess at the time of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And so for this February 2026 tour, we will be in the Great Pyramid at the exact time of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, and we will be holding the light and sending out the light for the whole collective as that conjunction becomes exact, which were the specific instructions that I received. And so this is going to be a very powerful journey where you will receive so much and you will experience so much beauty. And also we will be holding the light and sending out the light into the collective to anchor it, to ensure that the trajectory moving forward is positive and filled with light for our beautiful planet, for all of humanity. So this is going to be a really, really profound journey. And if you feel called, I will put the link in the description field right below this video so you can come and check out this page on my website and see our full itinerary and see all of the amazingness that you'll experience if you decide to go. Okay, so let's talk about the September eclipses. To begin, I want to just do a little bit of an explanation of what eclipses are and tell you some of the really fascinating things about eclipses. So you can find this chart easily online if you just look up eclipse tables. And this is a listing of the dates of all of the eclipses that we've had. And this chart actually goes back, I think, to 1900, if you can go back far enough. So the eclipses that were about to experience now are right here, 2025, September 7th, and 2025, September 21st. And you can see in this lovely chart on cafeastrology.com that they have the exact degrees of every eclipse and the dates, and whether it's a total or partial, whether it's lunar or solar, etc. So this is a really wonderful chart to consult. Now, I want to show you a few things about the pattern of these eclipses. Generally, we have 4 eclipses per year, and that is the case in 2025. Generally, these eclipses occur in pairs of 2. So you can see that in 2025, we had 2 eclipses in March, and we're going to have 2 eclipses in September. That is the typical format of eclipses. Generally, it's going to be 1 lunar eclipse paired with 1 solar eclipse. And we have eclipses when the sun and moon line up with the north node and the south node. So I'll show you an example of this in the upcoming eclipse chart of September 7th. This is the full moon lunar eclipse that we're going to have very soon here. And so the sun in this case is at 15 degrees of Virgo. And you can see it is very, very close to, almost exactly conjunct with the south node, which in this case is at 18 degrees of Virgo. And then on the other side of the chart for the full moon, we have the moon at 15 degrees of Pisces and the north node at 18 degrees of Pisces. So when the sun and moon line up with the nodes of the moon in this way, and the nodes of the moon are a calculation. It's not an actual thing that you would see in the sky, but it's a calculation based on the movement of the moon. So there are 2 times per year, always 6 months apart. In this case, it's March and September, that the sun and moon lined up with the nodes. And this is when that perfect alignment occurs, so that for the lunar eclipse, for example, we have the sun on one side, the earth in the middle, and the moon on the other side of us. And so the earth is casting its shadow upon the moon, and that's what causes a lunar eclipse. In the other case, if we were to look at the upcoming solar eclipse on September 21st, what happens is we're here on the earth in the middle, or on this side, I should say, and then we have the sun far off in the distance, and the moon comes between the sun and the earth. And there's this perfect alignment where the shadow of the moon is cast upon the sun and blocks all in a total eclipse or part in a partial eclipse of our view of the sun. So when the sun and moon are close to the nodes, this kind of perfect alignment can occur when that shadow of the earth or shadow of the moon can block out these heavenly bodies and cause the eclipse. So coming back to these eclipse tables, another important thing to note about eclipses is they occur in approximately 19-year cycles. So 19 years ago, if we're going to look at these, September 2025 eclipses 19 years ago, we would have had eclipses happening in Pisces and Virgo, with the north node in Pisces as it is now, with the south node in Virgo as it is now. And so you can look back and see the themes for these major stages of your life, where if there was something big happening in your life, a big transition moment, a big awakening moment, perhaps about 19 years ago, then you can be sure that you will be working with the same themes once again in this cycle, now 19 years later. So I want to show you one more thing really fascinating about eclipses. Sometimes there are more eclipses in a year than just 4. 4 is the normal occurrence, but sometimes, and I'm going to scroll back to 2020 to show you something really fascinating. So of course, we all remember 2020, it's burned into our memory, right, as the year that everything changed. And when we have extra eclipses in a year, it makes that year extra transformational, because eclipses are always going to bring transformation. They are always going to call us up to our next level of evolution. They are always going to send us on a deep portal of learning and up-leveling. And of course, we can choose if we want to accept the up level or, turn away and wait for the next eclipse. But generally we want to try to accept the up level, and that's going to help us rise in our evolution. Well, when we have a lot of eclipses all within a 1 year period, that means we are going through a major evolutionary leap, a major transformation. And so in 2020, there were actually 6 eclipses because we had this pair of eclipses that happened at the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So we had eclipses in 2020 on January 10th, and then we had 3, which is very unusual, 3 together. This was an extra long eclipse portal that lasted a whole month, from June 5th eclipse, June 21st eclipse, and July 5th eclipse. And then we had the other pair at the end of the year, November 30th and December 14th. And it was actually really as if we had 7 eclipses in 2020, because in the space of a year, if you include this December 26, 2019 eclipse, we actually did have all 7 of these in the space of a year. Because you can see from December 26th all the way to December 14th, that was slightly less than a year, and we had 7 eclipses in that time. So this was marking a major evolutionary moment in our timelines. I want to scroll ahead and show you when that's going to happen next. Very interesting. So in 2027, we're going to have 5 eclipses instead of 4. That's not as unusual. That's not like 7 in the time of a year as we had in 2020. But this is still, 2027 will be a bit of a bigger evolutionary leap. But then take a look at 2029, because in 2029, we're going to have that same configuration where we have one just at the very end of the year, 2028. This is similar to what happened in the very end of 2019, leading into 2020. And so we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eclipses all within the space of a year between December 31st, 2028 and December 20th, 2029. So 2029 is going to be another major evolutionary leap year. And I just wanted to show you this because it's so fascinating to see how that works. And then for 2030, we'll be back to just 4, just 4 again. And again, most years we have 4, and this year we have 4. So it's really fascinating how these eclipses work and the transformations that they bring to us and into our lives. So let's go to the charts. And let's go, first of all, I just want to highlight this new moon in Virgo that we had on August 23rd. I spoke much more about this in another video, which I'll link below. But just to say briefly, to open up the topic here, this new moon really opened up the eclipse portal and opened the path for this transformation that's going to be occurring for us all throughout Virgo season, because at this point, the sun had just moved into Virgo. You can see the sun is at 0 degrees, 22 minutes of Virgo, and the moon is together with the sun. That's what makes this a new moon. And this is the kickoff of the eclipses, because the whole time that the sun is moving through Virgo is when we're going to have the 2 upcoming eclipses. And the sun, or I should say these new moons, okay, are like bookends on either end of Virgo, because we had this new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo on August 23rd. And if I jump ahead to September 21st, we're going to have a new moon that's a solar eclipse on the ending degrees of Virgo at 29 Virgo on September 21st. So these 2 new moons are the bookends to this eclipse season. So it's really going from August 23rd all the way to September 21st. And I want to just point out to you that this new moon at 0 Virgo is in a square to Uranus. And that is an energy that can feel very uncomfortable, because Uranus is the planet that stands for our freedom and our liberation. And so a square is considered a hard angle in astrology. It's considered a more difficult angle. And what I really like to say about squares is that a square is always going to be an opportunity that feels like a challenge. So when we're being challenged around our freedom and our liberation, the theme of this planet Uranus square to the new moon, it means that we are being called to liberate ourselves. We are being called to let go of things that are holding us down or holding us back, but those may be things we don't want to let go of yet, or that we're still feeling attached to, or that we just are really hesitant to move away from. So there was probably a call for you at this new moon, some feeling of discomfort, some feeling of being called to a new life, a more liberated and freedom-filled way of being, maybe breaking out of old patterns, old addictions, old belief systems, old ways of thinking about reality. But it was something that was really hard to let go of, right? So if you had discomfort around this time, around this new moon, really look for how this transit was trying to liberate you and try to move toward the liberation and away from the old thoughts and old patterns and old beliefs. Okay. And this was giving us just a little sample of the eclipse energy. But what I really want to focus on here is talking about the eclipse dates. So here's our first eclipse of this pair. This is the full moon lunar eclipse, where we will have the sun at 15 degrees and 22 minutes of Virgo. So you can see now the sun will be about halfway through the sign of Virgo. And we have the moon at 15 degrees and 22 minutes of Pisces. And as I pointed out earlier, the moon is very close to the north node. The sun is very close to the south node. They're close to the node. So that's what is creating the eclipse, that exact alignment that creates the eclipses. So in this chart, we can see that this focal point of this full moon lunar eclipse is with the moon and with the north node. And that is important. The north node is the direction that our souls are pulling us toward in this lifetime. The north node is our future. It is the highest destiny future that we are being called toward. Now, always with the eclipses, they are going to be destiny moments. They are going to be moments when we're given an opportunity to take a big leap. It's an evolutionary leap that we're being called to. It's a big transformation. And as I mentioned earlier, you can either say yes to the evolutionary leap or you can turn away from it. But when we turn away from it, things ultimately get harder and harder because the universe wants us to take that leap. Right? There is this higher intelligence in the universe, in the cosmos, in the earth, in the stars, that can see the highest path for each and every one of us and the highest path for us as humanity. And really for all beings on earth, there is a highest path. And so the universe is continually compelling us toward that highest path. And the eclipses are the times when we will feel that the strongest. The eclipses and some major transits like the Saturn-Neptune conjunction coming up in February. That's another time when we will really feel that destiny pull. During the eclipses, we feel that pull of our true destiny, our highest destiny, our highest evolution. And it can feel really uncomfortable because very often it's going to be inviting us out of our comfort zones, out of what is familiar, into the unknown, into the mystery, into taking a big leap into something that maybe we haven't done before, or we haven't allowed ourselves to have that new belief system before, or we haven't allowed that new pattern into our lives before. But we're being invited to it always during the eclipses. And another thing that's important about the structure of eclipses is that it's going to be a 2-week window. Always when we have 2 eclipses, 2 weeks apart, right? Which is the normal structure that we have for eclipses. There's going to be one eclipse and then 2 weeks later, another eclipse. And that 2-week window is the eclipse portal through which we learn. We are given signs. We are given events in our life. We're given synchronicities during that 2-week window about what are the themes of this eclipse portal for ourselves. So you want to really pay close attention, especially from September 7th to September 21st, to see what comes up for you in your life. What is being shown to you? Is there a difficult situation that arises? Is there an ecstatic situation, or maybe series of meditations that come through? Really pay attention, because whatever is shown to you during that portal is what you're going to be asked to grow and evolve around for the next 6 months until the next eclipses occur. Eclipses are always kicking off a 6-month window of rapid evolution. So whatever the themes are that come up during the eclipse portal, then we get to carry them out. We get to play with them. We get to deepen into them over the following 6 months. So with this focal point of this lunar eclipse being the North Node, here we're being called into our future. The North Node is the future. And I'm going to show you a little bit more in the astrology exactly why I'm saying this, okay? But this eclipse portal is meant to be for us a major timeline shift out of the cataclysmic timelines, which I know so many of us have been feeling strongly up till this point, that something big is going to happen. It's like this cataclysmic feeling, like what is just around the corner? We can feel it. We are shifting out of that with this eclipse portal. And I'm going to show you very clearly in the astrology this really amazing trajectory of transits that's coming around this time. But I want to say that we are shifting out of that cataclysmic lineup of timelines, and we are shifting into a new and higher frequency timeline that is all about peace and the light and holding the light. And how do we hold the light? So this is a big shift. And as we move through this eclipse portal, we are really going to be called to let go of those cataclysmic belief systems. Now, we are human and we are in the 3D realm, right? And so we are very, very focused on survival, and that's normal. That's as it should be. And we have gone through great cataclysms. This is something that Barbara Hand Clow has written about in some of her incredible books, right? We've gone through great cataclysms, and we carry a great wounding because of having gone through that. We have the ancestral memory of the cataclysms, and we want to do everything we can now in this lifetime to prevent that, and to try to be aware of, is that coming? Do we need to look out for it? And then trying to make sure it doesn't happen. But the more that we focus on cataclysms, the more that we're holding the energy of that. And that is not the energy we want to be holding. And so this eclipse portal is a shift out of those cataclysmic timelines. And it will be a big adjustment for us, because it's basically the energy of the collective and the energy of the earth and the energy of the sun are shifting out of that cataclysmic time frame and saying, we do not have to be focused on that anymore. We do not have to be worried about that anymore. But yet our psyches are going to want to hold on to it for our survival mode, right? We kind of tend to stay in survival mode because we want to be alert, we want to be ready. And so this is a big shift to really change our belief systems, to really change our thought processes, to stop tuning in to cataclysmic headlines, to cataclysmic thoughts, because we do not want to energize that, and we don't want to start recreating it. This eclipse portal is a timeline where we get to clear that and let it go and not have to experience that again. Now, let me show you why I say that. This full moon lunar eclipse, on the other side of the chart, we have the sun in Virgo. The sun is conjunct the south node in Virgo. And so the south node is our past. The south node is our woundings, our traumas, these events that occurred in the past that can often create negative belief systems, negative thought patterns, where we're in survival mode, where we're looking for the worst case scenario. And so with the sun here anchoring this position in the chart of the South Node in Virgo, this is extremely important for us to pay attention to. The reason that it's super important is if I highlight certain key points on this chart, I want you to see that in this chart, we have a grand water trine. We have a grand water trine formed with the moon and the North Node on one side in Pisces, forming a trine to Jupiter at 19 Cancer, forming a trine to Black Moon Lilith at 18 Scorpio, which too is in a trine with the North Node and Moon in Pisces. There's this big triangle. This is a grand trine. And then we have the sun here and the South Node at 15 Virgo, which are in a sextile to Black Moon Lilith, a sextile to Jupiter. So this is forming a kite. This is forming a kite formation where we have two sextiles here and then two trines down here. And everything is pointing at this sun and South Node. So this is a very important key focal point. All the energy is looking at the sun and the South Node in Virgo. And the theme of the South Node in Virgo is our woundings around when we held the greatest wisdom, the greatest magic. Virgo is the priest and priestess in the temples that know the deepest levels of the mysteries, that know how to work with the forces of nature. Without a doubt, they have great mastery. And yet at a certain point, all of that was taken away from us. All of that was stripped away, whether it was through the great cataclysms that collapsed civilizations, whether it was through the patriarchy shutting down the temples and burning people at the stake who held that deep magical wisdom. There are so many ways in our past that we are deeply wounded around this Virgo archetype of the priest and priestess holding the highest frequency in the temples. Virgo also represents how we are in sacred service to the earth and sacred service to life itself, which is the same as being that high priest or high priestess in the temples, because what they were focused on was ensuring the continuance of life, upholding Ma'at, natural order and cosmic law, upholding the highest balance and harmony here on earth. And so we have a great, great wounding to work with here in the South Node. Okay, this South Node in Virgo that is being directly pointed to by this kite. What we are being called to at this time is to let go of, to clear, to release all of the old belief systems that point back to that great wounding or those multiple great woundings which occurred when we were no longer allowed to practice the magic and the mystery and the alchemy and the astrology, when we were no longer allowed, upon threat of our life, to be a midwife or an herbalist or a magician or a priest or priestess anymore. And so we are being called at this time to let go of all of those cataclysmic timelines. This also includes when the great floods occurred, when the great solar flares occurred, and the different times, for example, when the civilization of Atlantis was submerged. Because in that civilization, we did hold great magic, but it was being used for the wrong things. And so that civilization was wiped out, and this creates a tremendous wounding within us that we don't know if we can hold that magic properly. But we are being called through this eclipse portal to clear and release and let go of all of that fear and all of those woundings and all of those belief systems of doubt and fear whether we can truly hold the magic. Because at this time on our planet, we must hold that magic once again. And we can feel it in every cell of our bodies. We can feel it in our bones. And we are being called back to a remembrance of that true and deep power, wisdom, and magic that we held before, which is the theme of Virgo. We've got to let go of that past Virgo wounding as the South Node travels through Virgo. And what we're being called into then is this future. So then focusing back over here on the other side of the chart where the North Node and the Moon are, this is saying we are invited into the Piscean future. North Node being our future, Pisces represents our intuition, our visionary abilities, our psychic abilities, our capacity to connect with the multidimensional realms and the unseen realms and the shamanic realms, and to have great mastery in those realms. To remember once again who we really are as creator beings and use all of our abilities that connect us to the unseen and the magical so that we can rise. Now, this is an overall theme of this entire 1.5 year period that we're in as the nodes are moving through Pisces and Virgo. And I did a very in-depth video about the meaning of the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, which I will link below. And actually, here's what that video cover looks like. I recorded this back in February. And so the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo for 1.5 years from January 11th, 2025 to July 26th, 2026. So we're right in the middle of that now. And when I recorded this, we were just moving into it, but now we're really feeling it. Okay. We're really feeling this call to let go of any and all belief systems, fears, doubts, hesitations that have to do with where we lost our power or where we used our power incorrectly before, or where the cataclysms came and took our power away, or so it seemed, and move back into our confidence and our deep, deep trust. Pisces is really about trusting and surrendering to what is true, to what has always been here with us, your intuition, your visionary capacity, your healing abilities, these healing modalities that are rising back up in our world, that we're remembering how to heal using the plants and their wisdom, how to heal using energy and sound. All of this is our Piscean future that we're being called into. But we must let go of these Virgo wounds in order to fully embrace that future that we're being called to. So this is the evolutionary leap of this eclipse season and this 2-week eclipse window. So during this time frame from September 7th to September 21st, and we'll look at the chart of the completion eclipse on September 21st in a minute. During this 2-week time frame, you are deeply invited to connect with your intuition, to spend extra time in meditation or in ceremonial spaces, to really let your healing abilities be amplified, your psychic abilities, whatever it is that are your gifts that connect you in with the unseen realms. Work with them during this time. Talk to your guides, be in conversation with your guides, or be in conversation with the planets if that is your practice. If you've been in my courses, you probably have a strong connection with certain planets, right? So whoever your deepest guides are at this time, be in conversation with them and ask them how you can best clear and release those old woundings, the Virgo woundings from the past, so that you can step into your true multidimensional Piscean future and fully reclaim all that magic that you hold inside and that you have known through so many lifetimes and so many generations. And it may feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. It may feel way outside of your familiarity zone, your comfort zone, but really lean into it. As we know from the Pisces archetype, trust and surrender even a little bit more. And you will be so glad that you did, because that evolutionary leap is waiting for you. Your highest destiny is waiting for you and is being made available to you during this eclipse portal. And then remember, whatever happens during this 2 weeks, it will show you the themes. It will show you this higher level of what's possible. It will show you particular lessons and learnings that you're meant to be understanding at this time. And then over the next 6 months, until we have the eclipses again, which will be in late February and early March 2026, you will be able to put that into action, to put it into practice, to experience it more and more and more in your life as that true evolutionary leap and the next version of yourself that you're becoming. through this destiny moment. So let's go now to September 21st. This is the second eclipse. So keep in mind that we moved from that August 23rd new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo to this completion of the eclipse portal with another new moon in Virgo at 29 degrees. This has been a whole progression working with the Virgo archetype in particular, right? Very, very powerful. So now we have this new moon in Virgo, 29 degrees. And I want you to notice something when I highlight the certain alignments here to the new moon. We can see that this is now in a trine to Uranus. So whereas the new moon on August 23rd was in a square to Uranus, that felt really uncomfortable related to our freedom and our liberation. This is now a trine. This is a harmonic aspect. So now we have formed over the course of that month, from August 23rd to September 21st, we have come into a new relationship with Uranus. And by this time, because of the processes that we're going to go through during that eclipse portal, we are going to be feeling much more comfortable with claiming our freedom and claiming our liberation, because we've done healing around what we wanted to release from the Virgo archetype, those fears, those woundings, those doubts. We've done a lot of work to release them, and now we're in a new relationship with Uranus. We're in a harmonic and balanced relationship where we can much more fully claim our freedom, our sovereignty, and our highest destiny. There's something else really special and really important about this eclipse, because it is in a very particular and special alignment with the outer planets. So during this time, and all throughout the other dates that I've told you about here, we've had this very special alignment of the outer planets where we have Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius and Uranus at 1 degree of Gemini, and both of these in a trine to one another. They're both in air signs. They're both at 1 degree of an air sign. They're in a beautiful harmonic trine with one another. And not only that, but we also have Saturn and Neptune here at the very last degrees of Pisces, very first degrees of Aries, preparing for their grand conjunction that they will have at 0 degrees of Aries in February 2026. But for now, they're lining up, they're getting close together. And they are both in a sextile to both Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. So we have this beautiful configuration here of a minor grand trine, which is when there are two planets trine to one another, and then an additional planet or planets are forming sextiles to those two. So this is a minor grand trine. But then on the other side of the chart, what do we have? We have the new moon solar eclipse at 29 Virgo, which is forming an opposition to Saturn and Neptune, and it is forming trines to Uranus and Pluto. Now, the exact trine would be at 1 degree of Virgo. I'm sorry, 1 degree of Libra, because then that would be all the air signs, right? 1 degree of Libra, 1 degree of Aquarius, 1 degree of Gemini. That would be a grand air trine. But this is very close. This is only a couple of degrees away from that. So this is once again forming a kite formation. This time frame of the eclipse window is full of kite formations. And these kite formations are really, really important. They also, like the eclipses, the kite formations represent evolutionary leaps. They are very, very high frequency because they're made up of trines and sextiles, which are the very beneficial, harmonious aspects that we can have in the chart. And so this new moon solar eclipse is working very, very favorably with all four of the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I have another video about these incredible alignments of the outer planets. I will link that below too. It's called the Major Planetary Shifts of 2025 to 2028, because these outer planet alignments are going to continue for the next 3 to 4 years. And what's happening here is that this new moon solar eclipse at 29 Virgo is lining up in a kite formation with those 4 outer planets. Now, this is huge. This is all amplifying the evolutionary leap that's happening for us at this time. And this is another reason why I say this is a timeline, a portal where we are shifting out of the cataclysmic timelines and into timelines of peace and light. And what we want to be doing as a collective on Earth, all those who are aware of this, we want to be holding the light, holding the highest frequency, light. It is absolutely critical for us to be doing that at this time, because then it anchors in that new timeline and it allows us to stay on that new timeline of peace and light and leave behind the old cataclysmic timeline. And what I want to say about all the healing that we'll be doing during this time, you know, as we move through Virgo, as we're working with that South Node in Virgo, especially starting with the September 7th lunar eclipse, where we have the sun exact with the South Node. This is not the kind of healing where we need to go back and rehash our past lives, where we need to go back and revisit the traumas, where we need to go back and feel all of those really difficult and brutal experiences again. This is a kind of healing where we just make the leap, where we just make the choice, the decision that we are not going to be held under those old energies anymore, and we just leap into the future. And this is what the eclipses open up for us. It's like a direct pathway from this south node. We're clearing, letting it go. We leap straight into the future with the north node. So with all of these kite formations, coming back to the chart of the 21st, with all of these kite formations, it amplifies that. It allows us to make the leap even more quickly, even more easily, in an even more flowing, flow state kind of way. And I want to show you something else really special that's happening that this new moon is highlighting. So I'm going to take you back in time just a little bit to August 9th. This was a full moon in Aquarius. We had the sun at 16 Leo and the moon at 16 Aquarius. So at this time, we can see that we had a similar lineup to the planets, the outer planets where they are now. We had Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius, trine to Uranus at 1 degree of Gemini, and then we had Saturn and Neptune here, both at 1 degree of Aries. So this is that minor grand trine that I was talking about. And then across from Saturn and Neptune, there's a point, the 1 degree of Aries point. We could say it's 0, 1, or 2 degrees of Aries. Any of those will fit like a key into the lock for what's happening here. When any planets come through and hit that about 1 degree of Libra point, 0, 1, or 2 degrees of Libra, it's going to be like the key going into the lock and turning and activating our evolutionary leap into the future that is held by all 4 of the outer planets here in the minor grand trine. Because then that 1 degree of Libra point forms the kite with these other planets. Okay, it forms these incredibly harmonious angles where we have, first of all, a grand trine going on between the early degrees of each air sign, 1 and 2 degrees of each air sign. But then also it amplifies the sextiles from these points to the 1 degree of Aries point. And then there's this opposition here completing the kite. So for this full moon in Aquarius back on August 9th, we had Mars come through. So there's a whole parade of planets that's going to come through and activate this 1 degree of Libra point. Mars was the first one. Mars came through on August 9th and did this. Okay, so lighting up our evolutionary future, absolutely lighting up our ability to let go in an instant of the old woundings, the old cataclysmic timeline, and allowing us to just take this huge leap into the future, into who we know we truly can be and we truly are. So Mars did that, and this was in alignment with the Jupiter-Venus conjunction that was just about to happen here. That was exact on August 11th and 12th. And then what happens next? So next we have Mercury come through. Here's Mercury at 1 degree of Libra. This will happen on September 19th. So now we're in the middle of the eclipse portal. Mercury comes through and highlights that kite with the outer planets. Okay, Mercury at 1 degree of Libra, highlighting Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and the evolutionary leap we're being called to from 2025 to 2028. So then Mercury is highlighting it. And what happens next? Then we have the solar eclipse on September 21st, completing the kite. Here it's at 29 Virgo, but that's very, very close to 0 and 1 degree of Libra. It's close enough to make that alignment once again with the outer planets. Then it doesn't end yet. After that, we're going to have the sun coming to exactly 1 degree of Libra. That will be on September 24th, further amplifying that kite formation. And there's even more, which is that Venus. Then on October 14th, Venus will come to 1 degree of Libra. So you can see there's this whole parade of planets, first Mars, then Mercury, then the new moon eclipse, then the sun, then Venus, all coming to this 1 degree of Libra point, activating the kite formation. This is amplifying our evolutionary leap in such a huge way. This is taking us out of the cataclysmic time frame into the time frame of peace and light. So I really invite you all to look for that during this eclipse season, during this eclipse portal. I would love to hear in the chat how this is moving you and what resonates for you and what is coming up for you so far as we're entering into the beginning of the eclipse portal, especially what has been happening for you since the new moon on August 23rd. Please tell me in the comments. And if you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments. I will take a look at every single comment. I will answer your questions happily. Let me know if you have any questions at all. This is an extremely powerful time we're moving into, and throughout this whole time frame, especially September 7th to the 21st, I really invite you to lean into any areas that feel uncomfortable. It's like it's a time to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because being uncomfortable allows us to take the evolutionary leap and get us to where we really need to be. And we want to embrace that future. We want to embrace that Pisces energy of trusting and surrendering into who we really are, into who we really came here to be. Because that is going to allow us to release the old Virgo woundings in an instant, claim our magic, and really take that big leap into our Piscean future, where with the support of Uranus, we are free. We are liberated. And we also, as we release the old Virgo woundings, it allows us to more fully embody the high frequency side of Virgo, right? Because we don't want to only embody Pisces and leave Virgo completely behind. That's not the point here. We want to leave behind the woundings, the shadow aspects of Virgo that we carry, but we want to embrace the high frequency side of Virgo, which is being in sacred service to the earth, being in sacred service to the continuance of life, knowing that we are the priest or priestess in the temple. We know how to work with the ley lines. We know how to work with the astrological and astronomical alignments. We know how to hold the rituals and ceremonies that will uphold life itself, right? So we want to be aligning ourselves with the positive aspects of Virgo and the positive aspects of Pisces all throughout this eclipse season. And when we do so, it lets us release the old woundings very rapidly, move out of the cataclysmic timeline, move into the place where we can really trust just how protected we are. We can trust just how powerful and magical we are. We can trust our guides. We can trust our highest self, and we can trust our highest destiny that is unfolding for us right before our eyes. So again, I'd love to hear in the comments any reflections you have, how this is showing up in your life, any questions that you might have. I hope this has been very helpful and powerful to you. And blessings to everybody as you're moving through the eclipse portal. Let's rise together. Let's rise together and embrace our revolutionary, radical new future. Embrace these high frequency aspects of both Pisces and Virgo as we move through the Pisces Virgo eclipse portal. So much love to you all. I'll see you again in another video soon. Bye for now.